Dylan got it bumping.
What's up?
Michael, what's going on?
How are you, bro?
I'm well. You know, hair's growing out. Sunny day in
Dude,
Cali.
you look like you got a straight fro there.
Everyone says I got a Mexican fro.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's about to get ugly before it gets better. That's a word for somebody.
What's the end goal here? That's a word for somebody.
I don't have an end goal. I think for me, I used to have long hair, and I actually got really, I'm not bragging, but I got really beautiful hair when it's long. And so when I got married, my wife's like, cut that. I was on a Nazarite vow. But so we got married, and she's like, you got to cut the hair. You got to clean up a little bit. So I did that. And then this last quarantine, I shaved it, and I just didn't want to cut it. And she's like, hey, I kind of like your hair. It's attracting again. I'm like, well, maybe I'll keep growing it out. So I think the end goal is what every husband's end goal is, just that your wife's attracted to you and she wants you. So I think that's my end goal.
Dude, with those glasses and that fro.
You know, we trying out here in LA, man.
You're pulling LA off hard. It's nice.
You know, it's funny because I have pretty decent clothes, and it's funny because I don't go anywhere anymore. So I dress up now to come out to the light. I literally change my shirt to come to my garage, or I put on like a dope outfit when I'm gonna go to bed. It's just everything is shifted, man. You used to put out nice stuff when you're going out to like a church or conference. And
what is life in LA like? Is it everything pretty shut down, or are things starting to open up there?
If I'm honest, I feel like here people are getting to a point where they just don't care anymore. I mean, you're seeing traffic again. Beaches are packed.
Yeah, I saw that online. That's crazy.
think people are tired of staying home, man. Everyone complied, and I think you're realizing, man, if you're sick or if you're elderly, obviously you want to shelter and be safe. But for the most part, people that are healthy, they're needing to get out, especially people with kids, man. I mean, people don't realize you stick kids in a house for 2-3 months, you're gonna go insane. So, how about you guys? Everything's opened up in Texas?
For the most part, I mean, I think it's slowly been opening up for the last couple of weeks, and I was just out, and they're not requiring masks in most places.
Really?
So yeah, and I'm in Dallas County, so Dallas County is pretty. It's kind of a hot spot. So, but the places I went today, maybe 50% of the people had them on.
Dang, that's awesome. I feel like out here you're shamed if you don't have a mask. So.
Oh yeah.
Kind of the culture.
Yeah. I had to sport one because there's this upper roomer who made these design, like he's a designer, and they just look legit. So I gotta sport it. But it's what a crazy season, man. It's it's a great time to follow Jesus.
Yeah, you guys have been doing your lives with Corey.
Yeah, Corey and I have been co-teaching quite a bit. Have you been watching some of those? Have you seen some of those?
I've seen some of them, and I know some of our team's been going through some of Corey's courses.
Yeah.
And so I was actually pretty impressed. I didn't know how we have a missional community of about 50. I wasn't quite sure how people would respond. I think churches now with the pandemic, they're able to gauge who was really had relationships with God and who just didn't. And I was actually pretty shocked at the response of our community. For the most part, I mean, our guys have gotten closer to God. They've gotten out of debt. I mean, there's just been milestones that they've hit in their lives that you're just like, it took a pandemic to do this. But they've been getting wrecked by some of your guys' teachings that they've been going through. So it's been really awesome that you guys have been able to keep producing content.
That's great. Yeah, we for whatever reason, the Lord set us up with this online platform about 4 years ago, and so we were ready for that. I think we've really longed for the connection though, because you can pump out content, but man, that personal connection is what we've attempted to do on Zoom calls and stuff like this, but.
It's almost impossible, I feel like, though, to really get it like they're not like a good old hug or a good old handshake or.
Yeah, we need that, man. We need that. So that's awesome. That's cool. So you guys you said you're missional. What does that mean? What is that?
Yeah.
For you guys.
We're based out in Pasadena, California, and we have a missional community. So When I came to LA in 2011 for the first time to come and visit, and then I moved out here in 2012. I had $200 in my pocket and a Malibu car. 2005. I had nothing. Came out here. Had a heart to reach schools in LA. I had a dream to reach schools in LA. And when I came out here, I got connected to the church that I've still been a part of. I think it's going to be almost 10 years. I think I'm going on 9 years now. I've been at that church. But I came out here and met a guy at the church and said, "Hey man, what are you doing? Like, why don't you come and jump on? We're going to reach high schools." He was my first staff member. We came and rolled with me. We were broke for years. We used to eat food bank food and had nothing, but we started seeing God move in LA and our community began to grow. Eventually we came to Pasadena, just planted there. So we have families, young kids now. A lot of our crew's gotten married. So it's been definitely a different time, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we just had a boy a month ago. So.
Oh, congrats. What's his name?
Jedediah Jeremiah.
That's awesome.
My
JJ
wife picks all the names. Yeah, she picks all the names.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, I know we connected beginning of the year. It was really great to hear your story and to meet your wife and at that round table, just such a kindredness of heart, and love your journey and your book, Jesus Club.
Yeah, it's been crazy. And I know when I was able to chat with you, you really helped me so much. And my wife's actually, she was so excited we're able to do a live. And typically she prepares like questions for me, but for this one I was like, man, I want to prepare my own set of questions. I just felt like that even what you shared with me, man, about what God was showing you, how Jesus was revealing himself in a different form, in a different way, shared that with our team, really helped us navigate kind of what it's been like in this season. And for you, Upper Rooms, when did you guys see like the explosion of Upper Room? Because I know it wasn't overnight. I know it wasn't like you just started doing ministry yesterday. Even hearing your story, you've had quite a journey. So how did Upper Room kind of just begin and start? What's kind of maybe the shorter version of the story?
Yeah, the short. I had an invitation from a business owner in downtown Dallas, kind of uptowny, artsy, homosexual district of Dallas. He had a back portion of his business, which he was a vet, but he had a number of veterinarian clinics in the region. Now they're in multiple cities, but he had opened up the back portion just for prayer and worship. And through connections, he said, "Hey, would you guys want to come down and host prayer for this neighborhood specifically?" And that was kind of our background. And my wife and I we were really praying about what the Lord had for us and next steps. And so we felt a green light from the Lord. We went down, and he actually called it the Upper Room. So that's kind of how the name evolved. It was a description of the original room we were in. I say all the time, I don't know who would name their church Upper Room. It's just, it's got a lot of pressure. Pentecost weekends this Sunday, bro. And if you're the Upper Room, Holy Ghost better be there. So we've been on that journey for about 10 years. So we celebrated 10 years last month.
Wow. So you guys started in 2009.
Yeah, 10.
I said, wow. One Voice started in 2009.
Oh, nice. Oh, good. Yeah, right there. So y'all are 10 years old too. I got a 10-year-old niece, and so like this year we went to the bowling alley. Like that gives me perspective of where we're at on our growth track. Like bowling alley, hot dogs. So I just takes the pressure off, man. We're going for the 30, 40, 50-year run. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's a good pace.
Yeah, we celebrated 10 years with our conference last year. Todd White was there, Lou was there, Kim Walker. And there was this kind of like, not like an inauguration moment. There was this moment where they came on, my pastors came on. They laid hands on me and my wife, and I'm like, hey, this is it. We've hit 10 years. Every school now is going to get saved. And it was then the roughest season we went into right after that moment. I feel like we hit the decade, and I had these great expectations. And then we just went through some of the greatest trials, and learning and community and family and what it looks like to live out the gospel, what it looks like to endure. I'm pretty sure Upper Room, have you guys ever had moments as a community that's been difficult to navigate? Because I know most people see Instagram. I know I see YouTube, I see Joel going crazy, and I think that's kind of what people think Upper Room's like 24/7. But has there been some community navigation things that you could just maybe speak into, or advice or encouragement you can give people that are watching and they're going to watch later when we re-air this?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think ministry churches are like life. They experience various seasons, and looking back, I think every season has, as Solomon says, there's beauty in every season, but it doesn't always seem beautiful when you're going through it. So I think originally in the Upper Room, the Lord was really intentional about what we didn't do, and so the initial seasons were. We heard a lot of no's, like no to typical ministry church plant. When we realized we were a church and God was doing something, you want to have small group, community, a website would be an example. And we for like 3-4 years really felt a conviction from the Lord that he was saying no to those things, that he really wanted our hearts to be centered on this one ministry, and it was ministering to the Lord. It was setting a table for him. And so it was frustrating. It really stripped me of a lot of my expectations and probably my strengths and what I would have leaned upon. But he like, what's wrong with a website? What's wrong with media or podcasts? But for 3 to 4 years, we had none of that. We just had, I think at one point I put a one pager up with a Google map so people could actually find it. Yeah. But I realize now, looking back, that he was really solidifying in our core team and in our culture, our primary ministry and our primary expression. And so, before the YouTube, before a lot of now maybe what we're known for, people that are aware of who we are, we were really cultivating that in an obscure, unknown, room in the homosexual district of downtown Dallas, where there wasn't a ton of fruit externally. At least it didn't look like it. Wow. And then about 5 years in, I would say the Lord gave us a green light. And there's a little prophetic swirl we were in about putting moments of our culture online. And I think moment 2 or 3 went viral. Wow. And it was really cool just to see how, what we had cultivated, it just was our culture, how it impacted so many others. And it's just been such a blessing to see and hear, and real humbling. And so I think another season of growth for us, so that was one season, is the obscure, just the Lord saying no, but then when he said yes and the exposure came, we have this phrase around the Upper Room that says exposure exposes. And so when you do come into a season of revealing or unveiling or promotion or influence, just what's within really comes out. And so it was actually extremely challenging just to keep the main thing and navigate that as the senior pastor, and then a lot of the guys too that you mentioned, Joel and others, just when they enter into that light, just what it does to them, and just the sanctification and the process that your heart goes through. Wow. So exposure exposes. Yeah,
so good. What do you feel like? What's one challenge you guys went through, kind of going from being in obscurity in the limelight? You're like, man, was it fame? Was it maybe some of your guys who were they less teachable? Were they less teachable?
No, I think the guys that we've been running with they're I think for me it was just confirming of who they are and what they carry. That's such a good question. I think one of the lessons is that the Lord spoke to me early about influence, and I just realized how influence it's not a good measurement. I really feel like you can be influential for Jesus but not intimate with him. Dang. And so influence needs to be the fruit. It doesn't need to be a goal. And I just think it's real easy to exchange that, to think, well, I'm influential for him, so that must mean I'm intimate with him, or that must mean I'm bearing fruit. And I don't necessarily know that's true. And we're on Instagram Live. There's however many people will view this. So does that mean that we're intimate with him? Or are we just spokesman for him? And I don't want to just be a spokesman for him. I think there's a lot of noise and a lot of, again, I think influence for Jesus, but not intimate with him. So for us, cultivating a heart that's connected to him, I think, man, that is just so vital. And we cannot measure fruitfulness in regards to influence. And I think if you're called to be influential, allow the Lord to do that. I was reading, actually my daily reading was David. He's the cheese boy on the battlefield, sent by Jesse with bread and cheese to bless the soldiers. And in that moment, he hears a voice, taunting the armies of Israel, the God of Israel, and it provokes something in him, and that's his day of promotion. And so I just think there's moments where what you cultivate in the obscure sheep field back 40, it's revealed, and the Lord will promote us in time. And so I just think the goal isn't to be influential. If I could tell anyone that's young, that has a calling on their life, like, man, allow the Lord to put his favor and grace upon you in the right season. Because if it's not the right season and you somehow manufacture that, what gets you to that place sustains you. And man, you want to know in your inner world that the Lord did this.
So good. I wanted to ask you, you said a lot of things on that phone call I had with you that was so profound.
That was such a good call, man. That was,
yeah.
I really loved getting an insight to your heart as a leader and just the season that you've been in. So
yeah, no, you helped me so much. I was telling my wife, I feel like, I know I haven't known you long, but I feel like connected with you. And I wanted to ask you, because you brought this up, I think it was you that talked about there's certain aspects of leadership that aren't sexy. There's certain aspects of, maybe you didn't say that word, amen, that word, but there's certain aspects of leadership that they're not appealing. You even told me, you said, hey, you will be betrayed. There will be moments you're let down. There will be moments. Like, what insight could you give people on things that maybe leaders would go through? Because I feel like everyone always, like, they see the platforms, which I've had the privilege to be a part of a lot of stadium events. Lou Engle's been a spiritual father of mine for years, but I've also seen the back end of those events. I've seen the hurt and the pain. I've seen my wife led the call for Lou in 2012. I went with her to churches where we would get there and they would say, oh, we didn't know you're a woman. Sorry, you can't preach here. I mean, I remember that was in 2012. I remember being in moments of seeing that. What would you say? Like, what negative parts of leadership do you feel like that we have to learn to embrace, or we won't make it long term?
Yeah, I think there's probably a number of really good answers to this question, and just so much I think that leaders have to navigate in their own context. And so it's hard sometimes to like say, hey, this is the thing. But I think for me, one of the things that has really been a challenge is especially in the early days, is comparison and measuring how you measure yourself. And a lot of times we can measure ourselves based on our peers, based on those we see that are in a similar flow or carry a similar anointing. And I just think, like, really being true to who God designed you to be as a leader. I think that's one. And then I also think I could go on this, but I feel my heart's leading me to another answer. Here's what I think: leadership in the kingdom is way different than leadership in the world. And I think there are some principles that work in both realms. But at the core, if you're leading in the kingdom, and specifically if you're a pastor or leading his people, you are called to be the first follower. So your leadership should be the fruit of you following Jesus. Good. And I just see a lot of, like, leadership in the kingdom. We blanket these principles where you've got a lot of guys like me that are carrying revelation on the leadership the leadership, like leadership gifts or leadership and influencing people, but it doesn't necessarily have to do with following Jesus. Like it's not about like hearing him. So I would say, like, I call it presence based leadership, where we're following him in our context. Because I can adapt a lot of principles and it's, again, start influencing people, but I just think it can't be the right measuring stick. I think faithfulness has to be the measuring stick for us as his leaders, that we're first following him. I think it marked David's life. So I could go off on both of those, comparison and following Jesus as a leader, but I think those are two really unique ones to me.
How deadly is it to compare yourself in what you do? Because I know I love that round table we had, because I know there was a lot of incredible leaders. And
oh yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. But what I got to see was there was very different expressions of prayer. And I love, honestly, the expression. I told my wife, if there was any sort of prayer room that we would ever adopt in our missional community, I would want it to have an expression like Upper Room, where there's just this joyful, I mean, because again, I've been around the intercession, I've been around prayer movements, I've been around really happy intercessors, I've been around really grumpy intercessors. And so, so I mean, how dangerous is it when you get in that realm of comparing, like, this is what God's doing with me, but you're looking at Instagram, you're looking at other people? Because I know I fell prey to that in moments of my life, running with such legends. There's always been this pressure that I have to keep performing. We have a club of 400 one year. Well, I got to have a club of 500 next year. Yeah, it's almost like this pressure. And there's been moments I'd walk out of a club meeting from a high school of 300 kids, and I was depressed because we didn't have 400, which is it's ridiculous. It's insanity. Right. But how dangerous is it to fall into that kind of that arena of comparing?
Yeah, I think it's extremely toxic. I think it will hinder you from being faithful to who God designed you to be. And when you stand before him in that day, you're going to give an account for how you stewarded the gifts and opportunities that he gave to you. He's not, when you stand before the Lord, he's not going to think of Michael Miller. He's not going to think of fill in the blank. He's going to know who he designed you to be. And so comparison can drive us to manufacture something that's not within our DNA and what we're called to produce. And so I think we can honor leaders, we can honor cultures, we can honor, for me, I love Kansas City. I love what God's built through the House of Prayer and Mike Bickle. I mean, I have gleaned from, been impacted by Corey Russell, 18 years there. He's now one of my dearest friends. But in the early days, it was really apparent to me that we're a church. Like, we are a local church, and 24/7 prayer was not the goal. We wanted to center around prayer, but I just looked at that and I was like, that's impossible. And so we got in this flow of morning, noon, and night. And I can't even tell you how many hours a week we pray, because quantity is not the goal. It really is a quality, and like there's a rhythm that we have and a flow that we have that I think is really unique to our family. Wow. But I think if we just adopted, what Kansas City was doing, or an effective prayer ministry, we would have missed who the Lord designed us to be. So we've gleaned like a lot. We've received a lot, but we've allowed that to form and shape who we are. And I just think that in this hour, the Lord's raising up new leaders, that there's fresh expressions. I love what's happening in worship right now. There's so many communities that the Lord is like, there's these magnifying glasses that he's putting on that's like, look at this culture, and look at this culture, and look at this culture. And I really think it's cultures, communities, it's houses that the Lord's highlighting. And so those have to be unique to the leaders and their fingerprints and how God designed them. And so, we want to be voices, not echoes. And I think comparison steals that from us. Wow. And so if I'm young and I'm listening to this, I would find fathers. I think comparison comes when we look at each other. I love brothers, and what's up, bro? And the brotherly thing, though, in the Bible produces rivalry and competition. It just didn't work when you look at Joseph and his brothers, Cain and Abel, Isaac and Ishmael. We can go down the list of all these brothers that ended up just fighting. And I think in the church, sometimes we create that culture, this brotherly culture that's centered around the one guy and his personality. And I feel like God's raising up fathers that will raise up sons,
Okay.
and houses will be known by cultures that are marked by the father's voice. And in that context, man, fathers are given keys to unlock the potential of sons and daughters. And when they come and arise, then fathers aren't known for their gifts. They're known for their children. They're known for those that have been raised up in their culture. And I think that's what God's doing right now. I think he's raising up new fathers and cultures where fathers have really poured into sons and daughters that unlock their potential. So few people know Michael Miller. I love that the people that I'm leading actually may have more influence than me and my wife and our core team. And we're way okay with that, because I feel like it's just the fruit of our culture and what God's designed in our midst.
So good. You know, when you're talking, I was thinking, have there ever been a moment where you became nervous of your reputation outgrowing your ability to continue those first love things? I mean, maybe it's never happened, but like, we're like, man, like, you know, when I think of One Voice, you go on Instagram and you can see the gymnasiums and all these cool stuff that's happened. But again, those aren't 24/7 things. And so like gymnasiums and schools, especially now, every school shut down in America. My ministry has been drastically impacted. And I'm already preparing to not ever, what does it look like if we never allowed in schools in states like California and so on and so forth.
Wow.
But has there ever been a moment where there's been like a little bit of fear of like, man, what if this thing just grows so massive and these first love things, what if those get lost?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, man. You know, I love movements that are emerging on the earth. And I really think that it's hard for a church to be a movement. So I've really delineated in our world, like, okay, there's a movement component, but we realize, like, at our core, we're a family and we're a church. We're a church home. And so for us, distinguishing between the two, because Tom Lane wrote a book on church government. He's a guy, Gateway Church here in Dallas. Awesome resource. I forgot the name of his book, or I plug it, but Tom Lane has a book. I think it's called Church Government. But he talks about the difference between movements and churches. And he says movements oftentimes highlight a needed revelation that the church needs. And so, you know, you have movements like, I look at Bethel and what's taking place there and just the kingdom coming to earth, and Bill's book, Heaven Invading Earth. Man, I know my generation, a lot of leaders were marked by that. And it was this revelation that the kingdom's today, and that miracles can take place today. And it was needed in the body to think about the revelation of how that's impacted the bride. But I think Bethel would probably say it's been really hard to house that as a local family. And so I feel like God has really used Upper Room to bring back this ministry to the Lord component, and that our first priority is loving God. And this is what a culture could look like that does that.
Yeah.
And so for us to understand that there's that component to who we are, but man, that can't sustain us. We need to do life well. We need to do family well. And so taking the movement piece out of the church piece, I think, has been the biggest aha for us to protect our culture and to protect our church, to protect our family, to protect those relationships, and just to pull it out. So that's a little inside baseball in my world. I don't know if that answers your question, but for me, I just don't, we realized, like, I know what your question was. Your question was, with the influence, am I worried that things are going to change? And I think we've really attempted to protect our church culture from the movement piece. And I think it's something we're constantly juggling, but we just realized that we're not the movement. We really are a church family. We do life well. We do the local expression, like, really, really good. We're all grounded and rooted in that place. All of our musicians, singers, they're all leading a prayer set, at least one, if not multiple, where there's empty rooms. No one's in there, but it just solidifies in our heart, like, woo, this is what we're about. It's this thing. Okay. And so that keeps, I think, the main thing, culture, community, protected from the limelight and the swirl of YouTube and events and Comp City. It's just, it's not that alluring, I don't think, to us. And not that it is to others, but I just feel like we've really protected ourselves from that.
So good. I got two more questions, and then I'll let you go. I got a slam day. My first one would be, how have you navigated other leaders that are rising up that are super influential? Like you said, man, it brings us joy. Man, I'm a very much, I believe, if you maybe talk to our team, they'd probably be more insightful this. I believe I'm more of an empowering type person.
Yeah.
Some people get frustrated with me because I don't micromanage. I'll say, you want to do that? Dope, go do it. And then they're like frustrated because they can't do it. I'm like, well, it's your idea, like go for it. Like, what would you encourage leaders that battle insecurity of people getting more famous than them, more influential than them, or their stature growing? How does a leader like navigate that in their heart to know, man, this is the heart of Jesus, that greater things you're going to do?
Yeah, I think it's sanctification. I think that we have to be honest with ourselves when we have those thoughts. I think they're revealing. Sometimes God will pour favor on a friend or on someone we're running with, and I think we should be able to champion that, celebrate it. And I've been able to, I think, if that's happening in my heart, if they're close enough to me, I'll go to them. I'll talk to them about it. I really want to keep an open heart to my leaders and community. But, for me, I feel like it comes back to that father heart thing that, that we need to be okay with that. We need to be known for the people, if we're fathers, the people that we raise up. So, I don't, it's a good question, especially for young people, because that comparison thing is so crucial. A story that hit my heart is John 21. It's Jesus' last conversation with Peter. And he tells Peter, he goes, Peter, when you're older, I'm going to take you where you don't want to go. When you're younger, you can do whatever you want. But when you get older, you're going to go where you don't wish that you would go. And he was speaking of his death and how he would die. And it says Peter looking to John. So John was following him too. He said, Lord, is this going to happen to him? And Peter, Jesus answers Peter, and he goes, Peter, if I want him to remain until I come back, what's that to you? And in essence, what Jesus was telling Peter is, it's none of your business. What happens to John happens to John.
Hey.
And we know that John was the only one that wasn't martyred. Peter's death would be much different than John. And so here they both were, if you read the context, they're both following Jesus, but they have different destinies. And so one's destiny and fruitfulness, faithfulness to the Lord was to die being hung upside down, and the other was to die an old man, right in the book of Revelation. And so I think we just have to be aware of who we're following and why we're following him. Dang,
so good.
Dang, bro.
So good.
Come on. I don't know. You're young. How do you combat it? Specifically comparison.
I think for me, I've had a very small niche, and so there's not been too many people in my lane of high schools. Right. But I definitely have battled insecurity when I get around stadium events. Or I feel like an odd guy because I feel like I'm not this father in the faith that's Lou Engle and Mike Bickle. I'm not the Todd White kind of generation. I'm kind of this awkward. I'm 29 years old. People like me, I'm not like they don't not like me. They're like, hey, welcome. They'll welcome me in. I'll hang out. But I always felt like I never had a place. I remember when I went to the Sen Brazil, I was so humbled because it was probably, I'm used to going to stadium events where I'm given a backstage pass, a green room access. I go to Brazil. I don't know anybody. I get on the bus and Daniel Kalinda comes and he's like, scoot over, let me sit by you, man. And I'm just sitting there like, I feel so humbled. I feel so out of place. So I think for me, my battle has been more of like God's placing me in these positions that I just feel like, why am I here? Yeah. Like I can't like call down fire like a Todd White or preach to millions like a Daniel. Like I preach to high school kids. We know it's profound in its own way. But I think that's been mostly my insecurity has come from that. And even telling my wife, like, man, I don't know how to navigate sometimes conversations. I appreciate men like you who actually feel like you give us a spot at the table or you give me a place to even, respond back. And I don't know, man. I think
Yeah,
I think my lane has been
good.
very unique, but I think my insecurity definitely has come when I get around other groups and guys that I just don't feel like I can match up with in any way.
Yeah, man.
So
Well, I want to encourage you. It is it is a beautiful thing to hear your heart. I think you lead from your heart, and I love that. I love the passion that you carry and the zeal specifically for teens. Um, yeah, it's really unique. So be encouraged, man. Be encouraged that
thank you.
uh, you know, I want to live for 70, bro. Let's live for 70. Let's not live for 31. I mean, 31 will get us to 70,
Yeah.
but let's get a vision for our lives where these momentary measurements aren't that impressive. Like, I mean, okay, awesome. You did a 100,000 stadium crusade last year, but where are you in 10 years, and where are you in 30 years, and who are you raising up, and who are you pouring your life into? And I know those 100,000 crusades are so crucial, man. They're so like vital, but it's under the 70, it's under the 80. Like I look at guys like Lauren Cunningham.
Yeah.
I've gotten insight to Mike Bickle and just how focused he's lived. But I just think these momentary measurements will get us in trouble, that we need to live for 70, 80, which is unto us living in eternity with the Lord. Like we're going to have careers with him. We're going to, everything we do, this is a dress rehearsal for that day. And we're going to be rewarded how we stewarded opportunities and not falling into some of the traps that our Christian cultures can have us fall into. So I love your heart. I just think you have such a unique call. And there's probably a bunch of little hipster Gen Zers that look at your afro and glasses, and they're probably growing their hair out and putting glasses on now because of what you look like. I mean, I'm sure there's people that esteem you like you do your older brothers. So
Yeah.
I love your heart, man.
Thanks,
That's what
man.
I'm saying.
It's so wild. When I was in high school, I was never talked. I was super quiet. It's probably the most insecure guy you'd ever meet. I was afraid to talk
Wow.
to. I mean, I grew up with a really broken family. My father put me down a lot of different moments, and so I think even in my Christian walk, I have so longed for years that I've been saved, even for earthly father affirmation. You know what I mean? I think it's something you think, oh, it's gonna go away. You know, like, and my wife has told me, you know, you have a heavenly father. I'm like, yeah, that's dope. Like, I love him. Like, oh my gosh, is that your boy?
Yeah, speaking of, here he comes.
Hey.
This is Truman. Truman George. Look at his shirt. He's got Memorial Day gear on.
How old?
How old are you, bud? How old are you? He's 2.
Wow, I got a 2-year-old
Yeah.
girl.
Oh, man, let's set him up in about 25 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. How's he been doing in quarantine?
Oh, he's been doing good. Yeah, we've got 4, so he's awesome. He challenges mom and dad the most. He's not quite sleeping through the night. And he's finally potty trained, although he had one little episode today, but he's good. He's good. Show him your muscles. Show him your muscles really quickly.
Whoa,
All right, there you go.
Come on.
Yeah, he takes after his dad.
That's so awesome.
He's
well,
awesome.
Michael, thank you
He's
so
a
much
man.
for just jumping on this, man. Like,
Bro,
so honored.
I was so bummed. So for all your guys in your ministry, I was so bummed because next month we were going to do your event there in Los Angeles, and I am super. Was that this weekend?
That was supposed to be June 12th.
June 12th. Okay. Well, I'm bummed. So I am expecting a rain check.
Yes, next year. Yes.
Yes. Okay. I really want to connect with y'all. I love ministries that are touching teens and influencing the next generation. We've got to see this generation captivated with Jesus, bro. The statistics are terrible when it comes to Gen Zers, just the trajectory of it all. But I think the greatest harvest is in this demographic.
Agreed.
And so I think ministries like One Voice and what you're heralding are are the tip of the spear when it comes to evangelism. And so I was so excited to come and just see it and experience it and learn from you guys, because I tell my guys at Upper Room, like, they know this, we're trying to figure out how can we reach Gen Z. So let's go after it together.
So good. We're doing a small online event on June 17th for Gen Z. It's going to be a prayer event. That was the day they took God out of schools in America.
Oh, wow.
And so we're just really want to empower Gen Z. What we've been sensing more is, instead of just using them as a poster child, actually empowering their voice. And you see in the secular world, they're doing that with the gun control and climate. They are empowering
with conventions and stuff.
They're empowering these young. They're giving microphones to these young ones, and I feel like the church has to do the same. We gotta say, man, you take the mic and you preach to your generation.
Bro, I've got one right here. He's trying to do it. He wants in on it. Say fire. Say fire. I don't even know what this guy is. I don't think he's Gen Zer, but as you're saying this, he's climbing all over me, which means it's true. They're going to climb all over the Jesus inside of us, and let's give them lots of Jesus, man.
Yeah.
It really is. When he's presented, and just, you know, the deconstruction movement and all that's happening around whatever, we've got to present the person of Christ. They are hungry for an encounter with Jesus, man. And so let's frame his face, like, for a generation to see him as he is. Because when they get in an environment and then the presence of God is the priority and Jesus is manifesting, he's irresistible.
So good. Well, Michael, man, we love you guys tons. And whenever you're back in LA, you got a meal at my house waiting for you, man.
Dude, let's do it. All right. Well, soon and very soon. I love you, man.
Thank you. Man.
Honor to spend time with you.
Yeah, thank you, man. We'll see you guys. Bye, buddy. We'll see you.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We'll see you guys.
Man.